there's also a lot of resource links that I have put together in a document related to each of the issues we'll be covering today, and I will email all of you with that document so that we don't have to be distracted with continually putting them in a chat and trying to copy them from the chat. So anyhow, Kevin and Sue have done something that I hadn't even heard about this until a couple of months ago, which is that they installed a geothermal heat pump to heat and cool their home. And so Kevin's gonna tell us about it, and then we can ask him questions. Go for it, Kevin. And if you want to see just Kevin, you can click and turn your screen to speaker view. And if everyone else could mute, that would be great while he's talking for the next 8 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. Mimi asked me to start with why we got a geothermal heat pump, and that was back in 2006, I think. I wrote down somewhere, and now I can't find my notes, but it's been in the house a while. And that goes back to a summer when we were talking to some people in our food co-op at the time, and relating that we like to eat oatmeal for breakfast, but in the summer, it's not as comfortable as it is in the winter eating oatmeal. And they said, oh, well, we installed a geothermal heat pump in our house, and now we have air conditioning. And we said, oh, tell us more about that. And so we actually visited their house and saw what it was. So I'm going to share my screen. Oops.
Hang on a sec, I'll make you a co-host.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
This is a geothermal, this is a heat pump. And people may be not familiar with the term heat pump, but you all have a heat pump in your house. You might call it your refrigerator or your freezer or your air conditioner. All of those are heat pumps. And a heat pump simply is a device, think of again, your refrigerator, that moves heat from one place to another. Now in this picture, this is the unit itself. It's a little smaller than a refrigerator. On the right side here, you see these lines. They're actually, that's insulation you're looking at for the pipes. So the pipes are actually much tinier. They're inside this insulation. And this right here is the pump unit. There's a pump that pushes water back to the ground, and there's a pump that pulls it from the ground. These lines here, the one on the left and the one on the right, you can't see, but they go up and then outside our basement. And I'll show you more about those pumps and those lines in a moment. So they go into this unit here, and it takes heat out of the cold water and puts it, the water coming in, and puts the heat into the house and returns the cooler water back to the ground. And when we run it as an air conditioner, it does the opposite. It takes the heat out of the air that's coming through and puts it into the water going back into the ground. Now I keep talking about the ground. When we got involved in this, first of all, there was heating and air conditioning contractor in town. He did a lot of measurements of the house. He talked about what temperature we try to keep it at, and he decided we needed a unit of this capacity, and we needed 4 wells. And they talk about wells, but wells are really just holes in the ground. And while we were actually out of town, a crew came in and they dug holes in the ground, 4 of them, 150 feet down, and installed those tubings, those tubes that you see. And I'll show you an example of the tubing when I stop sharing the screen. And you can't see the 4th one very well. It looked miserable when we came back and we saw all this in the ground. But a few days later in January, another crew came along and they trenched from the base of our, from the basement here to the backyard where those tubes were. And you can see it's fairly deep. This is one of the workers standing in the trench. See his red hat, and he's standing there. I think they went down about 4 feet. And you see again, more of this tubing. And what they did is make a manifold so that the pump that's pushing the water into the holes pushes it down into all 4, and the pump that's pulling the water pulls it from all 4. And so that's, I'm sorry. I think that's all I'm showing with our heat pump system. So let me stop sharing. Stop share. Here is an example of the tube. So it's not, you see, it's not real big in diameter, but again, it goes down 150 feet, connected at the bottom and comes up another 150 feet. So altogether, there are 1,200 feet of tubing down in the ground. The ground is roughly 55 degrees normally. In the summer, when we run as an air conditioner, we're putting heat into the ground. And in the winter, when we're running the heating, we're pulling heat out of the ground.
30 seconds.
So that's a very brief description of it. As I say, we've had it for 15, 16 years. It runs well. There's one other thing you have to understand. If it gets very cold, down to about 5 degrees Fahrenheit, if the heat pump can't get enough heat to keep the house warm, there's an auxiliary heater, electric heater on top that comes on, and 15,000 watts of heating. It's like, I don't know, a bunch of toasters come on, and then we get very warm heat, and that brings us back up to the temperature we want. But that only happens when it's very, very cold. So I'll stop there and see what questions you have.
Perfect timing, Kevin. Who would like to ask some questions to Kevin and
I
Sue
think
about their
Louise.
experience?
I see Louise and then Alan.
I was wondering what you have to do in terms of maintenance for this unit, and is there annual maintenance, or has it broken down at all, and what's the cost originally and what's the cost for maintenance?
I don't think we've had maintenance on it in the last 10 years. It's never broken down. cross our fingers, knock on wood. I think the first couple of years, they would come out and just give a brief inspection. And I don't think, I don't even remember what that costs. So that wasn't, that hasn't turned out to be an issue. The original cost with the 4 holes and all the work and installation and the unit itself was about $16,000. There was a very small tax credit at that time, amounting to between 1% and 2%. So that really didn't matter that much. It replaced a gas furnace. So we stopped heating the house, obviously, with gas, and we're now heating it basically with electricity. And fortunately, a lot of electricity in Oberlin is generated in a environmental manner. Alan, what question?
It's again about cost. What does it cost to run that every month?
That's a good question. In the winter months, well, it gets complicated because with the solar panels, we don't pay for our electricity about 6 months of the year. So it's only the 6 months of the year in the cooler months that we're paying electricity, and it's largely for the furnace. And I think it might reach, the electricity might reach $300 in 1 month. Why don't you hand me that, the slip with all the numbers on it, so. Again, we use electricity for other things besides obviously the furnace, but the furnace, when it's running, is the biggest thing. So let's go backwards. Our last, all of our utilities come, our electricity and water is all city. So the last bill, it was about 300. The month before that was 200, actually 150. The month before that was 100. And then we were back to not paying for any electricity. And in the previous year, $50, $75, $100, $260, $250, $225, and then maybe just $25, and then again 5 or 6 months without paying electricity. So that's roughly what it costs to heat our home. And again, all of that electricity cost is not just heating, but I would say about at least 75% or 80% of it is. Other questions?
Kevin,
Yeah.
how much do you think you have saved in utility bills?
Well, that's a good question. When we did this, the price of natural gas was fairly high, and natural gas, and we thought, okay, we're going to save a lot of money on gas, and then natural gas suddenly started getting cheaper, and so I don't know. I haven't really compared the cost of utilities before the heat pump to after the heat pump. but I think we probably saved something. And the other thing, of course, reason we did it was we gained air conditioning. We never had any air conditioning at all. And so we felt that we gained air conditioning and we added to the value of the house.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
We don't have we have a really old house and we don't even have central air. We use like water radiators and wall units, window units for air conditioning. So did your house have central air before, or was creating those ducts part of your expense throughout the house?
No, we had forced air with the gas furnace. So the ducts were already there. So it was just replacing the gas furnace with the heat pump and attaching the heat pump to the vents and the plenum that was already in the basement. So we didn't have to do anything with that. We have a very old house. It was built in the 1880s. And at some point, there was a big, huge coal furnace probably in the middle of the basement. And then it was probably a gas furnace. Sue and I were trying to remember if we even had forced air on the gas furnace. We probably did. And then we replaced that big thing sitting in the middle of the basement with a high efficiency gas furnace. And we had that before we put in the geothermal. Any other questions?
I do have one more little question. So what the area where the pipes go down, what does that look like now? Into the ground?
It's lawn, yeah. I mean, they fill in the trench, and if you've ever had anything trenched, you end up with a mound, and it takes a while to work back down again. But yeah, you don't know there are holes there. It's all well underground, and it's mostly water running through those pipes, but they still put in a little bit of antifreeze, though it's well below a frost line. There's never been any problem with that. And the pumps had, again, knock on wood, no problem with the pumps. I would say one thing if you're considering it. We had a humidifier attached for the heating, and we've stopped using it. And I would not recommend putting a humidifier on a geothermal heat pump unless somebody can tell you that it's designed for a heat pump. But in the picture I showed you there, we do have a not air purifier, but what do you call it? Air filter. So the air is filtered before it goes into the house.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for telling us about this. It's really fascinating. Really appreciate it. Oh, go ahead.
Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just curious as to why one shouldn't put a humidifier on there.
The problem with it, we found with humidifier, is that it wasted a lot of water, and it wasted a lot of electricity in a sense. The problem is that the heat that comes out of a heat pump is not like the heat that comes out of a gas furnace. The heat that comes out of a gas furnace is warm, very warm. When you put your hand up against the vent, you feel heat. The heat that comes out of a geothermal furnace is cooler than your body heat. It's warmer than the room, because obviously you want to heat the room, but it doesn't feel hot. And so, first of all, it doesn't absorb a lot of the water in the water panel that's in the humidifier. And so a lot of the water that goes through the humidifier isn't absorbed. It just goes down the drain. So you end up using a lot of water and wasting a lot of water. So we've found it better just to put a humidifier in our bedroom and not use the humidifier that's on the heat pump.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We should go on to the very next thing, but that was terrific. And we're going to talk to Deb and Charles about their electric car. And I have a couple pictures of it that I can put up whenever you guys want me to. And then there's a few of us here that have hybrids that we'll just mention very briefly after you guys are done. So please go ahead. Go ahead, Deb and Charles. Okay, you're muted. Okay, go for it.
Charles has had a lifelong passion for automobiles. And we have been together since I was 14. When I was ready to buy my first car, he said, well, you got to get a stick shift. That's the way to drive a car. And he taught me how to drive a stick shift. And I enjoyed it and insisted upon having a stick shift ever since. All these years, then, well, you can.
Well, so about 5 years ago, when Deborah needed a new car, and I started looking for a stick shift, and I realized that fewer and fewer cars are available in stick shifts, and fewer people know how to drive stick shifts. As a result, fewer are available. So I decided I need to find something else that I would be passionate about. And I've always read about automobiles and technology and read about electric cars over the years, and started doing some research on electric cars, which had been, this was 5 years ago. They were popular then on the West Coast, East Coast, but not much here in the Midwest. You didn't see them much at all. But I felt that they would start taking off in the very near future. Little did I know that Trump was about to be elected and everything would have changed, but that's besides the point. We will get there. I looked into the electric car, mainly motivated by my passion for automobiles, and learned about how they lower your carbon footprint, how the green technology, the engineering of the automobile has changed so much. And I was intrigued, and I started doing research.
Well, when he told me about the possibility of me getting an electric car, I mean, I just never really thought about it before. It wasn't something that I didn't know anybody that had one. Hybrids are one thing, but anyway, so I was really excited from the very beginning because, I mean, obviously from the standpoint of lowering my carbon footprint, I liked that idea a lot. But then you did the research to, go ahead.
Well, so Tesla was making electric cars, and I read a lot about production problems and reliability issues. And then I learned that BMW was making an electric car. And I had a lot of faith in their engineering. They've been in business for over 100 years, and they designed this car from scratch. And it's built of carbon fiber and recyclable materials. It's extremely lightweight. It's rear wheel drive. It goes against everything that I always thought would be an efficient automobile, especially in the winters here in Cleveland, and being lightweight, like I said, and rear wheel drive. So I had to go and take a test drive. I test drove it and I was blown away, highly impressed. Extremely nimble handling, fast as can be. Instead of a stick shift, no transmission whatsoever. If any of you have driven electric cars, you put your foot on the throttle, not the gas pedal, and it just takes off. The technology allows when you take your foot off of the throttle, it slows down and feeds energy back into the batteries to recharge itself. So if you learn how to drive this car locally, you hardly ever use the brakes. The car brakes itself and feeds energy back and ups your mileage available on that charge. I was impressed that you could just plug it in the garage to a regular 110 outlet.
When I started driving it, when I took a test drive, I just loved it immediately. It just felt so good. It's quiet. It's, you know, it has this really tight turning radius. It's fast. It just feels clean. It feels so, it's like, it's fun in a different way than I've ever driven before. It's fun in a very different way than the stick was. But I just loved it. I have loved having it. People stop me and say, what kind of a car is that? And when I tell them about it, they're always really intrigued. And, you know, I feel good about being a part of, you know, helping to make other people, not make up, but encouraging other people to get electric cars. You know, if you don't see them or know of them really being around, it's different, you know, than seeing one and seeing a happy customer. I can't imagine ever having not a regular gas guzzling car again. I have loved having my electric car. I will probably always have one.
Don't have to go to the gas station.
Right.
Very, very little maintenance. In fact, hardly any maintenance whatsoever. If we didn't change tires twice a year, we would probably never bring it in for any work. And when you take it in to have work done, they plug it in and leave it overnight, and it downloads an upgrade in its systems. Basically, that's the service.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. And you know, ever since then, we're reading more and more about electric cars, and the industry is turning to electric. It will happen. I believe it's inevitable. And we feel good just being in on the ground floor of it, and have very positive experience, and will recommend it to absolutely everyone.
We love it.
It's the range.
I'll show the pictures of the car. How does that sound?
Great.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Oh, Alan, can you make me a co-host to be able to do that? Thank you. It's a very cute little car, I have to say, just on the pictures, based on the pictures you sent me. Wait, I've got to, wait, where'd it go? Hold on, I'm got to just sort of clear off my desktop a little bit to get to them, and hopefully you'll see them. All right, let's see if I can screen share the car now. Come on.
What's the range while she's getting that?
So the range is the interesting thing. The range on this vehicle is 80 miles, which makes it an excellent car for around town, but not for any kind of a road trip. The range on this same vehicle is still available today, and that range has tripled in the last 5 years. So the technology is improving tremendously. But this car, the range is 80. And in the winter, when it is cold out, the range is more like 50. The battery diminishes over time, like your cell phone battery. So when it was new, the range was closer to 100. Now it's closer to 80, that summertime range. Electric cars today, newer electric cars, are 200-300 mile range, which, you know, not a cross-country trip, but certainly a a decent road trip.
But as more people have them, there'll be more stops along the way where you can charge them quickly.
And charging will be quicker.
Yeah. So that's the car in the foreground.
It's very cute. Really cute looking car.
How'd it go?
Go ahead. Can you do the next picture?
I'm trying to get back to the Zoom to show the way it's plugged in. So it'll just take me a second to get back to the screen share so that I can do that.
You can see that I'm
Oh,
passionate about cars. The electric car, which we use most of the time, and then the other one is the supplemental vehicle for road trips. And the one in the garage was just a gas guzzler that I added to. So there it is plugged in. So you just plug it in, and I mean, it's easy as can be. You plug it in. If you're elsewhere, there's in the front where an engine would be, there's a hatch in the front with another charging cord, so that you could plug it in any 110 outlet. And
Yeah, I used to take it someplace in Mentor on a regular basis, and when I would get there, I would just plug it in to an outlet at a bank across the street, and then when I was ready to come home, it was charged.
right,
Yeah.
but I would say the negative aspect of this particular vehicle, being a very early vehicle, is the short range. Perfect for in and around town.
But if you bought one now, it would be 3 times the range.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. That's my only criticism. Really, love the car.
But we love it.
Questions?
Robin?
If you bought a new battery, would that increase the range? And how often do you have to replace the batteries?
The batteries have a 10-year warranty, and they have there's been no issue whatsoever. We've owned the car for 5 years. There's been no issue whatsoever, except for the diminishing range, which we understand. I would say when we need a new battery, before that, we should get a new car, because the big cost would be replacing that battery, which would be around $10,000. So you think twice about doing that.
But it lasts 10 years, so you just get a new car before you have to do that.
Right. So yeah, it's not a battery that can be replaced. The battery is the chassis of the car. The bottom of the car, which has a very low, wide center of gravity, is this very heavy battery. You're sitting on it when you're inside the car. The interior is totally flat on the floor, and underneath is battery.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. It's just designed so differently. When you're inside it, it's a small car on the outside, but there's so much space in the inside for a small car. You feel it's very spacious. It's just, I don't know why. I guess, why is that? Do you know?
Good design. Good design.
I mean, it just,
but
it's really nice materials, sustainable, woods from, I'm trying to remember now. The materials are all good materials that don't outgas, and you used the word before.
recycled materials.
Recycled materials, yeah.
Yeah.
So I have kind of a nosy question, if you don't mind my asking. Do you have any recollection of how much the car cost?
The car costs new around $50,000.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what do you think if it was on sale now? Do you have any idea like what it would be? Has it gone down? Has it gone up? Or
You mean the value of this one?
no, if one of us was to go and try to buy this car.
It's in that range, 50, 60,000.
But
Oh.
you can buy it a year or two old and get it for significantly less.
You know,
Right. Good point.
Vehicle.
Thank you. And do other people have questions? We were going to talk a little bit, there's a few of us here who have hybrids. Well, first of all, thank you, Deb and Charles. I think I would love to go out and get that car. It sounds great. It really does, and it's so cute.
It is really affordable if you get one that's like a year or two old. You pay a lot less, and it's, you know, it'll last a long time. And again, the newer ones have a good range, so it's, you know, it's a better time.
Considering what gas costs now, I mean,
Yeah.
staggering amount, I guess. Well, I want to say we got in 2013, we got our first hybrid. We got a Toyota Avalon, and it's now, I guess, 9 years old. It's in great condition, and we love driving it. It gets 40 miles to the gallon on the highway and in the city, and so that has been an absolutely great car and super comfortable. And I know that there's a couple other people who got hybrids. Do you want to mention yours, Alan, and then Kevin?
And Leah
Oh, Leah, you too? Okay, or
Good for Joan.
and Judy too. Judy Harris, that's a
Well,
Prius.
let's just go around really quick. Alan Federman
Okay,
first.
so I have a Ford Fusion.
Mhm.
It's about a little over 3.5 years old, and I bought it as a lease, and then I purchased it when the lease came up. I think it was something like 26,000, 25,000, 24,000, you know, as the price. The downside that I was surprised about, I get about 44 miles a gallon, both highway and city, in nice weather, you know, 50 and above. When it gets cold, it drops down to 34 miles per gallon. I don't know why. I don't know if it's something that is wrong with my car or whether they all do that. I heard that is a problem with some hybrids. So I'll turn it over to the next person. Maybe that's your problem. Maybe it's not. So I think Leah, you were next, right?
I don't know.
Go ahead.
I am on my third Prius. I bought the first one when you had to wait 10 months to get one. And I remember being on the highway. I took my granddaughter, who was about 8 or 9 years old at the time, and we went on to Upper New York State and had a wonderful time. And when I came back, I went back to the dealer and I said, there's something wrong with the gas gauge. And they asked me why. And I said, because it's not going down as much as it should. And I am worried that I'm going to be stuck with an empty gas tank. And they looked at me and they said, it's working perfectly fine. And I was just shocked at how little gas I had used to go to New York State and back. It was wonderful.
I'm going to add something for Alan, which I was told by Bill. Winter gas and summer gas is different. And that's why our cars use different amounts. No, now Kevin's shaking his head. That's not the reason? Oh, okay. All right, well, I don't know. I thought that might be the reason. Peter, what about you? What about your hybrid?
I don't have a hybrid, but Joan does. Joan got got the same car you have. Only she got it a year and a half ago, and she got it used, I think, a year or two old, as we've done for years, and as other people are doing. She paid something in the 30s for it. I don't remember. I don't know. She got it rather suddenly because somebody turned in front of her as she was going through an intersection and ended up totaling her other car, which had been an Avalon before that. She really liked them, so she within a month went out and got that, and she's been very happy with it, is all I'd say. And she's also getting, and I think she said in the low 40s, both on the road. That's what we take on trips and in town. It doesn't change very much at all, but she's been delighted with it.
Great. And Judy, what about you?
So I'm on my second Prius. I got the first one in 2006 and had it for 10 years and then got another one. So it's already, not a new car, but I love it. I really love the Prius. This one, it gets better mileage than the first one. So I get about 55 miles a gallon driving around Cleveland. I get a little less on the road, coming on the highway, probably because I drive too fast. But even still, we can go from Cleveland to Washington and average over 50, close to 55, sometimes even close to 60 miles a gallon. It has tremendous capacity inside. It doesn't look it, but you can put the back seats down, and the trunk is huge. When you do that, you have a lot of space, and we also have space for 2 car seats if we need them, and that works out too for grandkids. So yeah, I really like it. I like it a lot, and you don't have to worry, because you can always find a gas station. So even though electric is coming, and I agree it's probably the way of the future, this seems like a really great car till we get there.
Great. And Kevin, I don't know if you wanted to talk about your car, but it's really time for you to talk about solar panels. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So if the rest of us could mute, Kevin will talk about installing solar panels. And
You muted yourself.
Did I mute myself?
Mimi had muted herself, so
I see.
couldn't hear the rest of what she said.
I see. Just quickly about Priuses. We got our first Prius in 2000, the first one that Metro sold. This is our lifetime mileage over the 15 years we had it. And you can see that every dip is a winter. Every car gets poorer mileage in the winter than it does in the summer. There's nothing about a hybrid that makes that any different. So every peak is a summer, and every trough is a winter. And over the 15 years we had the car, it averaged about 44.5 miles. We're on our second Prius. Okay, solar panels. Okay, there's our house with 20 solar panels on it. We got into it because Oberlin formed a little co-op the year before, and some friend of ours got some solar panels for her carport. And the following year, we went to one of the co-op meetings and said, we're interested. And we ended up getting these from Third Sun Solar. Here's the 15, it's on our back of our house. Those roofs face south. And so we get the maximum we can out of those. This is what it looked like during the installation. Those are the rails that they mount the solar panels on, and the little devices that you see here and here and here, they're called optimizers, so that if one solar panel is having a problem, it doesn't affect any of the others. Another part of an installation is an inverter. The unit here on the left takes the DC electricity that the solar panel generates, converts it to alternating current, feeds it through a electric meter, so we know how much we're generating. And then from there, it goes over to our electrical panel and goes into the house. And if we're generating more than we're using, it goes back into the public system. Again, that's Oberlin Electric Company. We had a new meter installed about a year after, not this meter, the one outside. And there's the meter that they installed. If you look carefully, you'll see a DEL, and that's measuring how much electricity we're getting from the city. A few seconds later, it changes and you see it's an REC, which says how much they're receiving from us. And then a few seconds later, it changes to NET, which is the net. And when we're generating more than we're using, the net goes down. And obviously when, especially in the winter, when the geothermal is using a lot of electricity, the net goes up. And obviously the net goes up overnight. I think, yeah, that's all I needed to share there. There's one other thing I want to share with you, if I could bring it up. Okay. I forgot to point out to you that there's a little blue wire that leads from the inverter that feeds information into a central site. I'm not sure where Solar Edge is, and it's keeping track of our usage. I don't know, can you see this graph? Today was a nice sunny day, and you see we reached a point where we were generating 4.5 kilowatts. And for the whole day, we generated 31 kilowatt hours. That's a good day. There's a weekly pattern, and you can see some days aren't so good. Those are the big cloudy days. And if we have snow on them, we're not generating anything hardly at all. And they also show monthly. So you can see so far this month how we've been doing. March typically is a good month. In the bottom graph, you can see that as we get out of the winter and go into the summer, we generate more in a whole month, up to as much as 800 kilowatt hours. And then it goes back down as we get cooler. On a yearly basis, it looks to be fairly steady. 2017 is when we installed it. Obviously 2022 is where we're at now, but these other months are about the same. In 2021, we generated 6.84 million watt hours. That would be 6,000 kilowatt hours. So the system keeps track. We also take our own measurements twice a day. We're a little bit data heavy because I like to keep records. The whole system itself, installation and everything, was about $16,000, and we got a 30% tax credit from that. So that was a big help. I understand right now this year that tax credit is down to 26%. I'll stop there. Questions?
Thank you. Yeah, who has questions? Peter, you're just starting that process, aren't you, of getting solar panels? Do you want to mention it briefly, like what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I can show you some of the process. So some of you remember because you were over here almost 3 years ago now, and I was distributing literature, but then COVID intervened, and I finally started the process. So Solar United Neighbors is the group, or one of the groups that convenes co-ops to get group bids. And so I joined the Solar United Neighbors co-op, and I joined the selection committee for the co-op. So I participated in the process and I'll show you a little bit about the process really quickly. Can I share my screen? Whoops, I'm not seeing my screen. Let me try.
It's right at the bottom, it says share screen.
No, I've got the share screen, but when I bring it up, it's not showing me the screen. I'm not seeing what I actually have on my other screen to try to show you.
Maybe I'll make Kevin not the co-host anymore, and let's see if that helps. I don't know.
I've got something up on the screen here, on the second screen here that let me try to share. It just says unknown, so let me try to share and tell me. Whoops. I've got to go to security and preferences to grant myself access. Do you want to go to somebody else while I figure this out and come back to me?
Does anyone have questions for Kevin about the solar panels?
I'm just curious, the obvious question is the comparison, like, are you saving money? Are you doing mostly for environmental reasons? Are you like, what's the cost comparison?
The original estimate from the company was that, first of all, there would be an 11-year payback on it because of the savings, and we would save about 1/3 of our costs. Again, we use a lot of electricity in the winter with the geothermal. I've actually estimated that the solar panels provide half of our annual electricity, not 1/3, but 1/2. The payback period has been lengthened because when we first got them, it was based upon just the net, and now they pay us differently. So we pay retail for every kilowatt hour they give us, and they pay us wholesale for every kilowatt hour we give them. So the payback period will probably be longer, probably closer to 15 years, but that doesn't matter.
Can people see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to show you, so as part of the selection process, basically the Solar United Neighbors group solicits bids from companies and then compiles a lot of information from these companies and their bids and assembles that and sends it out. And then a committee of volunteers that I joined, and there were about 8 or 10 of us, basically meets for 2 hours and they go over the bids with us, and we select a contractor. We selected a contractor. And my own place in the process right now is that they also, if you join that committee, you get immediate access. The contractor comes to you first, but I didn't have the bandwidth to do it a month ago when the contractor came. So we're corresponding by email and going to get together early next week. It may or may not work out for us because he just told us that the roof is too shaded and we have to cut down a lot of trees for it to work for us. He wants to put it on the field right by the street in our house, and I'm not sure that's going to work, but we're going to try to figure out what's possible and see if something will work. But the process, this is the beginning of the process. They ask questions of the co-op members and they try to find out what the values are, what the co-op members think is important. So this is a compilation of responses, whether you think price is important, whether you think the quality of the equipment, it's important experience of the firm, the warranty, whether it's a local firm or not, and I forget what equity was, something about maybe how much local equity was in the firm. And here's a graph of that. They ask how many people are interested in supplementary batteries with your solar panels, so that if everything goes down, you can store solar and use the batteries to back up your regular electric service. Because typically the solar panels don't compensate, don't replace everything, all the electricity one would use. They ask roof type, and part of my issue is I am there's lots of different roof types, but I'm one of the two in here. We have a very unusual roof and a fragile roof, and so that's part of it. And some of the companies have no experience in dealing with the kind of roof we had, so that colored some of my input to the panel. At any rate, here is the content of the bid sheet. You probably can't read that, but and it goes down. There's a lot of information on here. There were 4 bidders. The bidder that won was the one on the right here, Yellow Bright Incorporated. Several of these bidders have won contracts from Solar United Neighbors in the past, have served co-ops in the past, and apparently have performed well. This one, RX Sun, is basically new in the area, so I don't think they had a track record that the others did. At any rate, Yellow Bright was the one was selected. There were 2 that were pretty close. But just to give you an idea, so this is a summary of the pricing of the system and various components of the system, depending on size and so on. This is options for upgrades to the system in terms of equipment. There are some base equipment, and then there's additional supplementary stuff with systems that are a little bit bigger or can do a little bit more. These are examples of priced systems. This is what the if you want an electric vehicle charger because you want to get it, or you already have an electric car and you want to plug it in and use a solar system to support that, this is what they offer. If you want a battery backup for your home electricity, these are the options that they offer for the different companies. They give you the loan financing if you need financing to install your system. There are some companies that will, in essence, lease the equipment to you instead of purchasing, and then you pay it over time or whatever. Terms for that, if they'll allow that. Whether they have incentives for the customer, for instance, if you pay early, will you register the systems with what is that? I forget what that is, frankly. Then are there additional charges for permits and approvals, or do they pay? Is that included in the bid? If your roof needs repair, and this is important, it's certainly important to me if I were to install one, because our roof needs periodic repair. It never needs replacement. And they told us it was worth a huge amount of money to keep this kind of roof, and it never needs replacement. But what it does need is every 3 years it needs repair because of leaks come through in different places. So if you need repair, will the contractor provide a service of removing the roof, of removing the solar panels and replacing the solar panels for you, which of course comes at a non-trivial charge, but not everybody will do it. What the payment schedule is, and some members of our group were very concerned with that. We discovered in our renovation a few years ago, basically, and everybody says this, but you don't necessarily do it. Always withhold a portion of the fee until they're done. Never pay in advance, and so on. And so some people in our selection group were very concerned about how much was paid in advance, and this is the payment schedule. Meticulous detail on the specifications of the equipment to be installed, et cetera, et cetera. You can just see there's a whole lot here. And so if you go through the process, and so I won't go through every line. I don't even remember what they were, some of them, but if you go through the process, the people from the co-op do a really pretty good job of explaining all the items in there to you. If the experience that I had was typical, there were a number of people on the panel who really knew their stuff. They were engineers or contractors, and so they knew what to look for and shared that with the panel. So it was a very educational process and informative process. And at the end of it, we were virtually unanimous. I mean, we were a hair short of being unanimous. And I was part of the hair, and the company, it wasn't clear by the end. There were some phone calls made during these 2 hours to try to get some additional information that wasn't on these sheets. And one of them was, which companies would do the kind of roof that I have. And that wasn't resolved by the end of the call, but in the end, it turns out that this company will. But they don't think it will work for our roof, because unless we cut down a lot of trees, and that sounds like, I'm not sure we want to do that, because of course we're trying to be environmentally sound, and that seems counterproductive to the purpose of trying to do. But at any rate, it's been an interesting process. We're going to meet with them, I think, early next week and try to figure out what the alternatives are and whether we can do something. And everything I've seen about the process thus far has impressed me and been very favorable to it.
Thank you, Peter. That's amazing. And I think I just want to add, because I also had applied to be in the solar co-op, and my roof was not south facing enough, and I also have too many trees, so I couldn't do it. But there are so many advantages to joining that co-op in Cuyahoga County, because you get a group discount, you get people who are really smart like Peter, who can do the evaluation for you so that you don't have to do it. And it's a great deal all around. And they work with really reputable potential vendors. So thank you so much for sharing this with us.
I'm sure.
And thank you, Kevin, too, for sharing what you did. I think this is it's very helpful. I think we don't have that much time left, so we had a few more topics. So I think we should move on. And Peter, if you could get out of screen share, that would be
great. I'm
trying.
Oh, there it is. I couldn't find the stop share.
And our next thing we're going to talk about, which kind of circles back a little bit to what Judy was mentioning, is about sustainable and responsible investments. And we've had a program about that before in the series, where we had an investment advisor talk to us. But since then, some people have really gone and done it. And so, like Carol, and so just briefly, people, I think Alan and Alan were going to just share a little bit about their process of going through this, of switching their investments to something that's more sustainable and green. So Alan Binstock, do you want to start?
There really was no magic to this. I just, just spoke to my investment manager and said, no more, I don't want any fossil fuels, so get us out of anything that has fossil fuels, and they did. So, and I just heard on the radio yesterday that 10% of all investments now are in what are called ESG funds, which I think stands for environment, social, and government. So people are really doing this. And they're really getting their money out of any fossil fuels investments. So that's all. There's nothing magical to it.
Alan, what kind of investments are you in now instead? What kind of funds or whatever?
They're mutual funds. I mean,
Okay.
The Calvert Group has some funds. That's where I mostly am in I have a Calvert mutual. And they have always been involved with socially responsible investments. So that's what we do.
Great. Thank you so much. And Alan Federman, how about you?
Okay, just real briefly, I was inspired by the first session that we had. And again, it was so easy. I got the name of the fund. I can tell you what it is. It's called Parnassus Core Equity Fund. And so I pulled out of, a fund that my investment advisor had recommended, which was doubly sweet for me. And this is mean sounding, but he's a Trump Republican. And so just being able to tell him, I'm not going with, a socially irresponsible fund. We're going to go with this, and took, no time at all. Just so you have an idea, the fund over the past 5 years has an annualized return of 15.8%. The last 3 years is 21%. They do two things. They avoid any controversial funds, not just companies, rather, not just environmentally friendly companies, but they also don't do companies that, for example, might invest in gold mining in the Congo or something like that. And what they do is primarily invest in carbon and no carbon intense industries. So it's a good fund to make, they have a good rate of return, and it takes no effort at all to switch from one mutual fund to the other.
Alan, you, at least on my computer, you were breaking up when you were talking about the percentage over the past 5 years. So I think other people
I'll
might
say
have
one more
heard.
time. It was 15.8% over 5 years and 21% over the last 3.
Wow. Judy.
So also I was inspired by the last talk that we had, and it really is easy. And a lot of our investments, a lot of my investments are in Vanguard index stock funds, stock index funds. And you can I just called Vanguard and said, I want the same thing, but in ESG, and made that switch. But there was something, there is another point that I think we should just think about. When we talk about green investing or investing with climate in mind, there's two really different things, two really different aspects we can take. One is this. So if you're in a indexed fund that is without fossil fuels, usually they're also without gun manufacturers. They, as Alan said, they have aspects of the governance of the company, and those kinds of things that are considerations. That's very important. But there is another kind that is actively, and then you get the Googles and the Alphabet and the Microsoft, because those are the non-fossil fuel big producers. And if you're in an index fund, that's where you end up. But there's another kind of investing to think about, and that is funds that actively support new technologies. And that's much more complicated. I think you have to know more about what you're doing, which I don't, but that's an aspect that's worth investigating. It's a little more risky because some of the technologies will work eventually and some won't, but it's a different kind of investing for the future.
Thank you. And you know that David Shriver, who spoke to us a few months ago, he was someone who could help people make that second kind of investment. He was very familiar with that. So, you know, I have his contact information if anybody would like to talk to him. But thank you very much, and thank you, Louise. And the resource list that I'm sending out to everyone, there's going to be there's such cool websites. There's a website called As You Sow, where you can put in the name of your fund, and they will rate it with a grade as to how, you know, environmentally good or bad it is very quickly. It's incredibly easy to use. And there's also a few other websites that will help you determine like what bank to use or what credit card to use, you know, and which are good ones, which are not as good. So anyhow, they'll all be in the links that I send out. So yeah, this is a big deal. So I congratulate anyone who's done it. I haven't done it that much yet, except with one of our Vanguard funds, which happens to be doing a lot of these socially responsible funds and renewable funds are doing way better than the ones that include the fossil fuels. So does anyone have any questions about this before we go on about this issue or this topic? Okay, and then the next thing we wanted to very briefly talk about, Alan, Federman, and I, and there probably are other people too, switched. You know, we have a regular electric company. I have First Energy, and I don't know how many people here, or the illuminating company. I don't even know which. I think I have the illuminating company. But you can choose who provides the electricity through that company. So Alan inspired me to change that out to renewable sources. And Alan, why don't you tell what you did first?
All right, real quick. Years ago, this is about 3 years ago, I actually gave you a different company. It turned out it was called Clear Choice. And I got it at a very good rate. I got it at 5-point-something cents per kilowatt hour. And the average now is like 7.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Unfortunately, the rate for Clear Choice is now up to about 10. So you are paying more. I don't have a very high electric bill because I have gas heat, but for me, it's a minimal difference. But like I said, because I got it so early on, I'm actually saving money with an energy. It's all renewable energy entirely, 100%.
And I did the same thing. I may even have the same company as you, but there's a website that you can go to that is so easy. And that link is in the thing I'm going to send you, but it's I think it's PUCO, P-U-C-O or whatever, or if you Google that and then also Google apples to apples, it will take you to a page where you can compare sources for electricity, sources for gas, and all kinds of things. So I went to the one for, I guess, my company, that bills me, and looked at their chart, and you can select for which provider offers 76 to 100% renewable. And that took it down to about 4 providers. And, Bill screened through them and we chose one, and it may be the same one as Alan, and the price is really not too different than what it would be. And I just feel much better that, at least I know the electricity I'm using is coming from renewable sources. So anyhow, it's an easy process. Finally, we were going to talk about and we did talk about this somewhat at the beginning, but just some quick and easy ways to help the environment. And one of them was, as I talked about before, household paper products. And I will bring, if you'll let me screen share again, Alan, I will bring that chart up on the screen so people can see the chart that you can look at. It's on the NRDC website, and it's I think it's called the Issue with Tissue. Yeah, Issue with Tissue 2021 scorecard. So let me see if I can show it to you guys. Here it is. All right. So I'm not. I could make it a little larger, but you can see that it rates like all the major toilet papers with a grade, and all on one page. So you can download a PDF. It's on the NRDC website, but you can download a PDF of it. This is that PDF. There's another page for paper towels and facial tissue. There's an explanation of their methodology. And I guess the last one is a more in-depth analysis about how they evaluated the toilet paper. So it's a great tool, and we can all access it and then decide what we feel like buying and try different things out. And so thank you to Sue for suggesting bringing that up. And there's also all different things in terms of, we already talked about how much plastics we use, or plastic bags or whatever, and the resource list I send out, there's a bunch of helpful links that Sue shared that I'll include there. But are there other little quick and easy ways that people haven't mentioned yet that they might want to share to, kind of things they're doing to try to help the environment? Or if there's things that you're doing in terms of trying to influence policymakers, that you think are important and you want to share it now, please do. Oh, come on.
I mean, I think it's important that I came in a little bit late, but I want to second what I heard Judy saying at the beginning of our session. You know, I think it's important to provide support to organizations that are lobbying and support of policies that are helpful for environmental, particularly climate concerns. And I agree with, I think, what I heard Judy saying, which is that as much as we, and I'm reading a book now, The Book of Hope by Jane Goodall with some collaborating writers, in which she talks about, you know, she gets hope from numerous examples of people doing small things that become bigger. But it does seem to me that with all we might do, any of us here and any of us in general ourselves, that it's not, there isn't a whole lot of hope unless we can move society, unless we can move governments, unless we can move policies, or unless we can generate a wave of popular revulsion to the destruction of the environment in the way that the world population is reacting to the invasion of Ukraine. But without these kinds of social and general large-scale action, we're not going to get there. So we need to support that.
Thank you. Anyone else? I had shared with the Climate Action Group a link to an article that comes out at the end of November every year. It's published on Vox, the website Vox, and it's something like the 5 best places to donate your money to help the climate. And what they do is they are looking, and they have these very sophisticated people who are analyzing the many, I mean, there's so many different organizations, but if you want, they choose the ones that are really cutting edge, that are using cutting edge technology, or really working to affect policy in a positive way that can, where your individual donation really will make a difference. Because, you know, there are the big companies, the big greens that have hundreds of $million budgets. But these places that are they highlight in the Vox article every year are much smaller, and your money would go very far. So that's worth looking at if you are thinking about making a donation.
Is that going to be in your sheet that you're sending out?
I will add it. Okay. That's Vox. And does anyone else want to add something that we haven't talked about yet, or? I will say very briefly then, well, first of all, thank you so much to all our presenters and to all of you for being here. This was amazing, and I learned so much. It was really great. And there are a few people who couldn't come tonight who want to watch this, so they will learn from what you're doing as well. There is really a global movement this spring because of the fact that every major religion is having a major holiday at the same time this spring, which is quite unusual. There are big, huge organizations like Green Faith, Dayenu, the Shalom Center, but other like really enormous multi-faith organizations planning to put the full court press through public actions against the 7 biggest funders of fossil fuel companies. So it is 4 major banks and 3 major investment funds. And we are planning a few people from different, okay, thank you, Barb. A few different people from different synagogues. We're planning to do an action at a Chase branch on April 19th, which is in the middle of Passover at their lunch hour. That will be like a Passover Seder ritual with delivering a letter to the managers because JP Morgan Chase is the largest funder and investor in fossil fuels of any organization pretty much on earth. And they need to hear that people are, want them to stop. So if you're at all interested in getting involved, it's going to be fun. I think it will be effective because it will be part of actions that are happening all around the country and all around the globe. And there's a lot of creativity, room for creativity in it, and I think we're going to have a good time. So let me know if you're interested, please. And
One little thing when you're talking about all these things, it's a little indirect, but I have a cell phone company called Credo Mobile, and they fund, they have a fund for various investments. A certain percentage of their profits go to very liberal organizations, that are environmental and stuff like that. But by contrast, companies like AT&T are some of the biggest funders of Republican candidates. And so if you want to change a system, Republicans are not going to be ones who are going to be changing any system for the good anyway. So I just wanted to mention that too.
thank you. Great. Does anyone have anything else they want to add?
Mimi, I just want to thank you for organizing this really fascinating evening and your ongoing work to keep these sets of issues on the front burner for us as a community. And
You're welcome.
hopefully we will, I think we'll all be inspired to look more deeply into these different possibilities of ways that we can make these shifts individually, and even as we continue to keep our eye on the larger issues as was pointed out by Judy and Peter. So that's what I wanted to say.
Can I just thank Rabbi Steve for being a great leprechaun last night? St.
Oh,
Patrick's Day.
Peter, you don't have to say that to me,
That's really good. I've been to Ireland and heard that. That's really good.
Happy belated Purim to everyone. It was fun to be with everybody, both online and in person last night. So hopefully more to come on that front too. All
Great.
right.
Well, take care, everyone. And thank you so much for showing up tonight. We really appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Mimi.
Take
Good night.
care.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.